right, and last but certainly not least, CC, your top 15 list.
Mm-hmm.
But first, your criteria in terms of how you were able to compile this list of yours, and of course, your honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions will kind of be scattered throughout as I'm going, because there's certain films I think that almost made it, but they were films I liked better that made the cut more. And then I think, as far as criteria goes, I tried to go with stuff that I really personally connected with in one way or another. I really was drawn to films with a lot of style. Tight narrative construction was also something that appealed to me. And I tried to balance out between a variety of different, I tried to do the thing of not having too many of a particular filmmaker on here as well, although there's one person who kind of sort of appears twice. But with that being said, and I think the really fun thing about doing a list like this is that when you go last, the question becomes, okay, what's going to overlap with everyone else's lists and what isn't? Which I'm curious about. But so going from number 15 going up, for number 15, this was a film that went on and off this list multiple times, and I finally was like, nah, I have to put this on, if I'm being honest with myself, which I tried to be, because, I think it's a film that was really liked at one point. Some of the luster on it has kind of faded, but I think that I really enjoyed it. It's one of the funniest horror movies I think I've ever seen, but it's a film that I still have a really, really deep appreciation for. Cabin in the Woods, number 15 for me. Nice. Really, it's one of those.
I know the writer in the doghouse for everybody nowadays, but but it does. I don't know. It does work. It does work as a solid meta conceit. No, because it's not. Well, and I think it's not pretentious as a meta. That's the thing. It doesn't
go
up its own ass or anything like that. It's have a own story by itself.
No, and I think that it's a movie that a lot of people aspire a certain amount of cleverness to, and I think it's clever in the way it chooses to be meta and funny, not clever as far as it's a movie that you need to write an entire YouTube essay puzzling out or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, not that kind of movie. Not that kind of movie at all. I just really enjoyed because I think it's really funny. The meta conceit is very clever. There's so many moments from this that I quote the evil has been defeated with friends all the time. Yeah. It's such a good moment. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Number 14 is another one that came up on a couple people's lists, but Let the Right One In.
Nice.
It's one of a few vampire movies on this list, and definitely, I think, one of the ones the most creative. I just love, and I was thinking about this when comparing it to the Matt Reeves film, which I mostly like, but I don't love. I think what the original does over the Matt Reeves film is that it manages to maintain a very quiet, cold, dread atmosphere from one end to the other. There's something about the film that kind of gets under your skin that just feels uncomfortable and uncertain and is kind of quietly eerie. A lot of the films on this list are going to be more bombastic, but as far as quiet horror, Let the Right One In is probably one of my all-time favorites, and I think it's a very clever. I also think that there's something sinister about the slightly romantic, because I think Matthew earlier mentioned this as being a movie with some kind of romantic stuff going on. I actually find those aspects to be some of the film's most sinister content, because there's an implication that this particular vampire builds these sorts of relationships with humans in order to always have a caretaker who will always keep watch of them, which kind of implies there's kind of a dark, predatory aspect to it that I find really, really disturbing, especially with the way the film plays out and how it ends.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How it ends. This cycle is just going to continue. It reminds me of another horror movie, but from the 80s. So it reminds me of what's the one with David Bowie, directed by Tony Scott, with a similar
The Hunger.
Yes, The Hunger, one of my all-time favorite movies. Yes,
I need to watch that. I need to watch that film.
So good. I love that movie so much. Moving from Let the Right One In, that's number 14, to my number 13 is talking about bombastic. And this is one that I think people debate whether it's a horror movie or not. But there's enough disturbing aspects to it that I would definitely call it a horror movie, is The Lure from 2015.
I need to watch that.
Never saw it.
It's so bombastic. It's this, as far as just this retelling of it's like someone took the Little Mermaid story and said, this is kind of fucked up. There's something deeply upsetting and kind of violent about this story. Let's make that the text. Let's show this in all of its violence, in all of its gore, in all of its like that kind of punk energy about things that are about like, you know, girls coming of age as women. The body horror aspects of it are genuinely terrifying. I love the soundtrack and the music as well. Like the music absolutely slaps like so hard, and I got to see this on the big screen, and it was like an absolute blast of an experience.
All right, so first off, lucky you saw that theatrically,
yes.
And you know, shout out to Criterion Collection, because I wouldn't have known that this movie existed if it wasn't for them. Cause it's in their collection right now. I need to see it.
It's a massive cult hit, and it was one that like the minute I saw it, I said like one of my professors in grad school said that the difference between a cult hit and a movie that's just obscure is a movie becomes a cult hit when the people that like it for all the reasons that other people will dislike it. Essentially, like that is how he defined a cult hit. So for a lot of people, all the things about this movie that would make it weird and off-putting and strange are exactly the reasons why someone like myself loves it as much as I do. It's like, oh yeah, I love how many genres are being stacked on top of each other. I love the offhand. I love that you could have a whole debate about whether it's a horror movie or just a regular dark fantasy or not. Like, and I think that that's what makes it such a seminal cult film. I think one of the most interesting cult films of the last 25 years, I would say, like definitely one of the best cult objects of the last 25 years. So that's number 13. Moving on to number 12. This one is a bit controversial. Not because I don't think, well, the film itself, the ending is incredibly. I have never seen a film whose ending divides people so thoroughly. But it's also a movie I think is controversial because there's a whole debate about is it a movie or is it a mini series or whatever. And I'm like, look, whatever it is, it disturbed the ever-loving crap out of me. And the author who wrote the novella it's based on, you know, also agreed that this adaptation is even more disturbing than his original work. And I am, of course, talking about Frank Darabont's late career masterpiece, The Mist.
Okay.
One of the most
interesting, right?
The end of that movie, I was not a fan of. I was like, okay, I get it, but why? Just why?
Yeah, brutal.
Here's the thing. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Whenever you talk about The Mist, the ending splits everyone, and I find that truly fascinating because, like, to me, the ending is about because the whole movie, and it's like Stephen King's work and Frank Darabont's work, and it's all about what happens to people in survival situations, like the kind of what aspects of people are brought out by the pressure of those kinds of situations.
Right. Again, social horror.
Social horror, exactly. The kind of stuff that like George A. Romero was the absolute master of. Rest in peace to that beautiful man. And so what I love about the ending is that it does kind of have this absolute gut-wrenching tragedy of some people give up too soon.
Right.
Give up just too soon for what could have like and I think that bittersweet kind of like I know so many people that like hate this movie. Like they hate it because like that gut punch ending where that's too much. I can't do that yet. I can't like that and it's constructed in such a way where it's so designed to fuck with you. Like it is designed to mess with you so thoroughly. And the fact that it does it so well that the movie itself is as divisive as it is, definitely. I love The Mist. My number 11 is going to be the only film on this list that doesn't have some kind of fantastical bent to it. It's the only film. And the fact that this film is what it is should tell you everything about my preferred taste in horror movies, because this is the only one that's fantastical. And I think this is a film that I really like because it stood the test of time. I think that it comes out, this is a film from 2004, and if we think about the kind of pop culture that was coming out of 2004, where it felt like there was this emphasis on films and TV shows and things being clever and having twists and having, you know, all kinds of complexities and all kinds of things. We were just talking about something like Cabin in the Woods that people just love to analyze and really dig into. I think most of that stuff has kind of aged quite badly. Like most of that stuff aged.
Listen, I'll tell you, because of M. Night Shyamalan started to disappoint people. That's what ended up happening. It killed that. But I'm gonna tell you something. Even though you can probably count it as a horror movie, I absolutely hate The Village. And The Village don't work for me at all. Hate The Village. Well, listen, I know it how people like The Village here, but that shit did not work for me at all.
Well, and I think that like that kind of quote unquote clever filmmaking has really aged quite badly. Like you look at things, even things like Lost and BBC's Sherlock, or things that were both like, oh, we're so smart and clever. Then you get to the end and you go, what? But out of all of those works of pop culture, there is one film that I think has actually maintained that. I haven't seen any of the sequels, so I don't know if maybe the whole franchise goes to hell in a handbasket. But this first film, I have come back to again and again as a genuinely clever, brutal horror movie, Saw.
Nice.
I love Saw so much. It's weird because, yeah, it does have the structure of kind of like a noir, a detective story, but it is also a viscerally uncomfortable, visceral horror movie. And like, I think it's a movie, as I said, it's a movie that's genuinely clever. It's a genuinely intelligent movie. Some of the twists, you cannot tell me that ending doesn't stick with you. I know it keeps me up at night. Like that.
Especially that scream the guy lets out at the very end and you hear it.
Yes!
As the end credits show up, I was like, yes, I love that. Right. That's just such a pitch black way to end a movie. Period. I love it.
Yeah, a good twist. Yeah. And they're going to reveal like the whole body was the dead body the entire time thing.
Yes.
Like, it was him. I thought that was real clever. Very rarely they pull that off well. Like a dead body is the thing.
Right.
And, you know what show do that? Naruto. There's an episode of Naruto where very early in Naruto that did this, and I thought that was so clever at the time.
Okay.
Like it's because the guy, one of the ninjas, he had two dead bodies in the room. And he tried to escape with a clone, and he ran out, and then he one of the dead bodies just get up and run on the room, and that was the real guy the entire time spying on them, like with a real hard.
Yeah, well, like, clearly they were inspired by Saw, right?
Yeah, exactly. It totally feel like from Saw. Like, wait, they take that from Saw, right? But I really like Saw ended. Like the first Saw is great. Like the sequels, I never get into the franchise. The franchise.
Yeah, I never got it.
I tried to, but I just got bored after the fourth one. And then when they actually did, well, Saw 5, I think it was, did the backstory of Jigsaw. I was like, what?
Yeah, after a while, it had to feel up its own ass. And here's the problem, because I forget the actor's name, but his whole ass, they tried to
Tobin Bell. Mm-hmm.
Tobin Bell, right? He all asked to do these flashbacks. It's like, yeah, but you're not even looking you trying to look younger, though. And it just come across as silly after a while.
Yeah, but
Chris Rock and take was no crap. Like, I waste my time.
Listen.
Spiral, that's
Spiral.
Sorry.
Is so bad, but the ending of that movie had me in stitches. It is one of the most unintentionally hilarious sequences I've ever seen in a movie. That's all I'll say. And Saw X actually was surprisingly good. It was a great return to form, right? In terms of it's the point I don't remember the timeline of this, right? I think you could just exclude Saw 2 and the others and just jump from 1 to X just like that. I don't remember the timeline properly, right? But
I remember.
Saw X is as great as the first one.
You know, the timeline got increasingly convoluted as the series went on, like with films.
So what happens that I went to see the second film and I was like, oh, this felt like a complete waste of my time, dude. And it's like I just kind of give up on the franchise after that. I heard the third one's worse, and like, all right, well, you're just kind of half-assing it now then.
Yeah, well, last point I'll make, right?
The first one is great.
Yeah, well, last point I'll make. I think the problem with the sequels is that they just dive in so much into the gore elements. It's all about the shock value and all about like just fuck with your mind now.
The trap.
That you're
and being us and coming up with clever traps.
Yeah, but the stuff behind the traps don't make any sense. Sorry, it's not as compelling.
Yeah, because I was about to say, let's be honest, the gore is not what makes the first film work.
Right, exactly.
The gore is not what it's like the film has the first film has this like perpetual threat of like visceral violence, and the traps are all really clever and they're really brutal and like they make you physically uncomfortable even to look at. But the film also has a really great plot. The film also has all these really elaborate twists and turns that keep you invested because you keep trying to puzzle the film out. And unlike a movie, unlike something like BBC Sherlock, which is contrived and there's no way you ever would have solved the mystery, you could have solved the mystery of Saw. Like the clues were all there. It actually holds up really well as a mystery. Yeah. So number 11, one of my favorite horror movies, and I even think like if I had to make maybe a top 100, maybe top 150 favorite like all-time favorite movies, I make Saw might make it on there. Number 10 is one that I like a lot. I don't see a lot of love for this one. I think some people find the premise a little goofy, but like here's the thing. A, I don't care. B, I think that for a premise that people dismiss as goofy, I think that the way they find to make it scary actually works. And and as the whole thing is like haunted house stories aren't really about like, actual, like the actual ghost, right? Even ones with their ghosts are real. They're about like, more profound thing. They're about things like,
Right.
A couple that
History
are
and
going through
trauma.
some kind of domestic problem and traumas, right? That kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, from 2010, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Yes.
Okay.
Killer Tooth Fairy movie.
Never saw that.
Yeah, I will defend this movie to the hilt. It's one that the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, this is really good, but maybe a 9, not a 10. But I keep coming back to it as like, this movie is so much more clever than it has any right to be. Like, obviously, written by Guillermo del Toro, who I think also produced, and then it's directed by Troy Nixey, who never directed anything else, which is disappointing to me because, like, I think Don't Be Afraid of the Dark is really effective. I think it's really tightly constructed. The premise, like, it's one of those movies where you're like, oh, haha, it's about killer tooth fairies or whatever. But then, like, you actually watch it and you go, why is this actually disturbing?
Right.
So yeah, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, number 10. I really like that one. Speaking of Guillermo del Toro, moving on to number 9, there is a film of his that I think, because Del Toro himself has said that doesn't consider himself a horror movie director. There's not very many like straight up horror movies in his filmography. I think a lot of his films have horrifying stuff in them. Like, even though Nightmare Alley is a noir, it's quite horrifying, especially that ending. Pan's Labyrinth is a movie that's like a dark fantasy, but good lord, it puts the dark in dark fantasy. But there is one film of his from the 2000s that is both a horror movie and I think is exceptional, and that is Devil's Backbone.
Nice.
Talking about a movie where the ghosts are symbolic of something larger, something else going on. So like, literally, we're getting into the trauma of a nation torn apart by a civil war. We're getting into orphan boyhood and like kind of what goes on there with boys who are left to take care of each other. I really like the old caretaker man who watches after the orphanage and everything. And his whole arc of struggling with aging and perceptions of impotence and like all this other stuff. And then like the implication that like the villain himself is also someone who's got a lot of problems and a lot of baggage and a lot of stuff going on about machismo, and like there's just so much going on in that movie. And then it looks gorgeous. Like,
it does.
Terrifying and brutal and disturbing, but it looks gorgeous. And there's also just what I like. Del Toro has a bit of a cheeky streak to him. There's some moments in his films where I think he will go for the kind of the gross moment. And I think like that whole bit with you remember the scene where they're talking about the like fetuses preserved in alcohol, and he like offers him the glass. And that every time I watch the movie, I actually gag when I watch it. I was like,
that was messed up. Yeah,
that was so messed up. Number 8 is another one that's going to be a little controversial because it's not. It feels like a movie to me. Maybe more of a. I hate that in film we don't have a term like novella in novels, where it's longer than a short story but shorter than a novel, so it's a novella. Because I wish that we had more of the vocabulary for this kind of thing. Because I really enjoyed back in 2022 Del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. Like I really like that show a lot.
I'm not surprised you have this on your list. I'm not surprised, and that's fine. Keep it there.
Here's the thing. It's not the entire show. There is an episode that is like on this list because I really feel like.
Wait. Is it what I think it is? Go on.
We're building to it. So, because like I really feel like the episodes of the show do function like short films. I really like they're just a little longer than short films, but they feel like movies and they're self-contained. And let's be honest, because the show is essentially Del Toro using his powers as a producer to let his weird friends make whatever they want. There's not really anything connecting the films to each other necessarily. But of all the films that I watched, and I enjoyed some more than others, some of them I didn't like very much, some of them I thought were great, some of them were just weird, but there was one that stood out for being atmospheric, stylistic, disturbing, but a movie that I have not been able to get out of my head. and that is Panos Cosmatos's The Viewing.
Yep. I love that one.
I'm obsessed. I love Panos Cosmatos. I love Mandy. I love Beyond the Black Rainbow. And the fact that he's working on a new vampire movie called Flesh of the Gods, I'm like, can I just have it now? Why do I have to wait? I don't want to wait for this. Just let me have it now.
I was thinking to count stuff like Werewolf by Night as a part of this, but like,
well, I'll throw this out to you, Ricardo. If you were to go on Rotten Tomatoes, they have like a top 100 like best horrors. I think it's either of all time or of the past 25 years, and Werewolf by Night is there. So I'm like, okay, cool, great, no problem.
Yeah, it crossed my mind, but I was thinking, and it's a Marvel product, so I'm not sure how much people take that seriously. However,
but note to self, I really do need to watch that for Halloween. I really do need to rewatch that.
I would take it. I would take that seriously. Like Werewolf by Night is fantastic.
Yeah, but Panos though, like I said, he's a VHS guy. He's a guy who just probably revels in watching like 80s horror films. Though. You could see it in his films. You could see it.
The 80s is in this man's DNA. Like his father is the guy who made Tombstone. I think it's like George Cosmatos, or Giorgio Cosmatos. Like he's like an 80s filmmaker himself. And like Panos is fascinating because he's not like some people are like, oh, this I have a film friend I get into debates about the man because he's like, isn't he a little style over substance? And I'm like, you don't get it. When you watch a Panos Cosmatos film, the style is the substance.
The substance, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like the style it's not style over substance or substance, whatever. It's like the style is the substance. Like, and like with The Viewing in particular, I think it's one of those experiences where because it's short, it's just about an hour long, you really get Panos at his most minimal. Like this is like a streamlined experience. And so much of it is just creating this very particular atmosphere where you're just kind of hanging out with these characters and you're just feeling the weird vibes of this place before it builds to that absolutely bananas ending. Like that climax is absolutely insane. Like the whole ending part of that film is just nuts and I love it so much. And I think and here's the thing, I loved a lot of Cabinet of Curiosities, but it's wild that is still my favorite episode and that it stands out, I would honestly say, as like my favorite episode of that series. And because it's just about an hour long, I feel justified in calling it essentially a film. And so yes, number 8 is The Viewing from 2022. Sticking with the 2020s, for number 7 is a film that I feel like it's one of those movies that as much as people want to debate horror, because people like to debate horror, people like to debate like, oh, is this a horror movie? Is this too much comedy? Is this too much action? What makes a horror movie? People love to debate this stuff. But sometimes a film comes along that is just so viscerally disturbing and so viscerally upsetting and so just uncomfortable that even if someone could technically debate that it wasn't a horror movie, I feel like the horrific effect it has on the viewer speaks for itself. And I am, of course, referring to Phil Tippett's magnum opus, his true masterpiece as an artist, 2021's Mad God.
Nice one.
I need to watch that, and I remember that being in your best stuff of 2021, but yeah, need to watch Mad God.
Yeah.
I need to watch Mad God. Yeah.
Mad God is so disturbing. Like, Mad God is a movie that you watch and then, like you're just... It's viscerally unpleasant in a way that, like, but not in like a shock way, like something like a Serbian film or Human Centipede. It's just upsetting in such a beautifully constructed way where it creates such an absolute nightmarish hellscape. It's like, you know that medieval painting, the one that's like this absolutely beautiful, that beautiful wide canvas that's just like a portrait of hell.
Yeah, and it'll have a big mouth, a big mouth eating the person. It'll come to me. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and the more you look at it, the more you see all these disturbing, weird details.
Yeah, it'll come to me. I've always seen him in that picture, right?
Yeah. But that's the effect that watching Mad God has on me. Where like the more you look at it, the more repulsive it is, and the more upsetting it is, and just how absolutely bananas. And it's a film that you could sit there and like parse out whether like what it means or what it is, or even if just maybe it doesn't have a meaning per se. Maybe Phil Tippett just had a nightmare and wanted to share it with all of us. But either way, I found it one of the most disturbing films of the 2020s. So of course it had to be, especially ranked, it had to be
I think it's a Bosch Paintings.
Yes, I think it was one of those. Yeah.
One of Bosch Paintings.
So it had to be number 7. Yes, Vision of Hell, I think. Yeah. It had to be number 7. So Mad God, had to be number 7 on my list. Number 6, I'm so sorry, Michael. Number 6 for me is Us.
Nice. That's 3 of us.
Look.
That's 3 of us. 3 of us.
One of us.
One of us.
Well, and I think that thing about Us, I actually agree with Ricardo. Us would be an even better movie if they never explained it. I think the implications we get are disturbing and upsetting enough, but I think it's a movie that to me, I was explaining to someone recently what I really like about Jordan Peele as a filmmaker, and I was saying, Jordan Peele understands that there's something about weirdness specifically that we actually, as much as we like to laugh, it's the age of the internet, haha, lol, random, but there's actually something else. We actually find weird things just a little bit off-putting.
Right.
There's something it's a little uncanny. It's a little strange in a way that kind of triggers a pretty primal part of our brain that's I feel kind of unsafe right now. I think about in Get Out, for example, another film that almost made it on the list. Think about how in Get Out, there's that whole scene of the white girlfriend character sitting bolt upright in almost this unnaturally rigid posture, eating cereal while drinking a glass of milk, listening to I've Had the Time of My Life. And it's such a funny image, but it's also, it's weird, right? It's kind of uncanny. There's a part of your brain that goes, I don't feel safe right now. There's something really odd going on. And what I really appreciate about Us is that Us doubles down on that specifically.
Triple down.
Less of that in I feel like Nope does less of that, but and Nope was another one that I weighed putting on this list. Nope was also really close. I love Jordan Peele. I just love Jordan Peele. But Us triples down on that. This is random and strange, and I kind of don't feel
my favorite part of that movie. My favorite part of that movie is Tim Heidecker. He's so good at this too. He's great. And then when they meet his when is he tenant? His tenant is so terrifying though.
It's how he kills Elizabeth Moss too. It's wow.
But he's great in this too. That's what I like about him too.
Oh
He's great at this though. And all right, they kind of cook here. When I see he show up in the movie, I'm all right, I don't go like this. I don't John Peele do some wild shit with him. And his scene is so good though. But
what I feel
when he slick back his hair, he pretended to be the counterpart, a real jerk too. They make it work. It's a good scene.
Well, it makes so much sense to me because again, Jordan Peele started out as a comedian. He understands
right.
He understands that what makes people uncomfortable, what makes people laugh because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
And after doing that for so long, he instead weaponizes that to make things that make us laugh that we find uncomfortable, but they don't make us they're uncomfortable in a way that would make us laugh in certain contexts. So I think about the scene where Elizabeth Moss's doppelganger is trying to put on makeup, and that scene is just so uncomfortable. It's so weird and strange, and I feel just a little uneasy watching it, right? It's a scene where I'm I feel like in another context this could be funny, but watching it now, I'm I don't feel safe. I feel uncomfortable. Something in my brain is saying something uncanny is happening.
About that scene, right? And you know what? During when I recapped it, right? At first, I was like, okay, this is really, really weird, but I don't understand why. But then I thought about it, oh, that's what it means. It kind of does a mirror image of its own self. So, okay, it's doing the makeup, and it's oh, wow, look at me, right? But then afterwards, it sort of reverses, oh, look at me, I'm ugly. And then, she takes a knife and does the thing, right? So it's it's not just she's doing a mirror image of, the real Elizabeth Moss, but a mirror image of her own self, right? So, one thing is about beauty, next one is about just disgust. I love that.
Because the thing with the tether is that the whole framing of the tether is that you're not sure how intelligent they are, but they are really intelligent. All of them. It's not just what you call her, Lupita's counterpart. No. It's all of them. But it's her because she's not accustomed socially to the outside world. It now kind of cooking she brain a little bit now. Little things like that. It's this is real clever though.
I think for me, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was about to say that, like, and I feel like because we already, like, if you look at human mythology, we have so many myths and legends about creatures that impersonate us and we know aren't us, but we can't quite put our finger on how they're not like us. And, like, I think the most disturbing sequence in the whole film for me was the parallel sequences of the, like, her as a girl with her parents at the fair. And then it keeps cutting to the, like, the tethered underneath with their own, like, weird mirroring thing. Like, everything from, like, the bunch of tethered standing in a row impersonating the people on the roller coaster just kind of moving around. And it's like, everything about this is just upsetting.
It is. It is.
And it's actually...
as I say, you mentioned Jordan Peele comedy, right? So when he was on Key and Peele, it had a couple sketches. Now, just straight terrified when I think about it, though. It's just, it played funny. But like, go back and, okay, listen, I still think to this day this is our masterpiece. Look up the Family Matters bit. Family Matters.
I've seen it. It's so, yes.
Like, this man real talented though. Like, what going on here? And it's like, the final this dude turned out to be this amazing horror director. Like, yeah, okay, that makes sense in retrospect.
Oh, God. Like the Family Matters skit is so, like, it starts so funny and it gets really it's really uncomfortable, and then it gets like almost like straight up horror. Did I do that? Like, it's like
yeah, I just wanted to button on the us conversation.
Yes.
Because I understand the weirdness. I am cool with it being weird. That's probably one of the things I like most about it. My thing is it felt weird for the sake of being weird rather than having a neatly resolved premise underlying the story. And that's my issue with it. Right?
Well, and I think if you accept it as weird for the sake of being weird in a lot of ways, I think it actually makes it for a better film. Like, I think, like...
Well, that's what makes it worse for me.
Interesting.
Okay.
I watch a lot of weird stuff.
All
the weird stuff I watch has a purpose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? So for me, my issue with it was, from the trailers, I liked what it appeared the movie would have been touching on.
Yeah,
but then when I saw the actual film, I was disappointed because it's not, there's no point, right? A lot of it, when you sit down and think about it, doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, and that's where... Well, I think you could make an argument that Peele's films, the reveals of them are the moment where you either love or hate the movie. I think Jordan Peele consistently, like I remember some people who, when Get Out first came out, were like, okay, I love this movie, but what the hell is this reveal? Like, what the hell is this, like, final reveal, like, everything like that? And I know a lot of people, like, I was talking to someone the other day who liked Nope until the reveal about the flying saucer being, you know, like, the real nature of it, and there was like, I don't know about that.
I was kind of iffy on the aliens thing as well.
Right.
The thing is, in Nope is not an alien. It's not an alien. It's a cryptid. It's on Earth. Yeah, it evolved on Earth. Technically, not an alien. Yeah. That's the whole point of the animal, because he notices an animal. So, and the fella who's the filmmaker, he film animals. There are no aliens.
I have no problem with Nope from that point of view, because again, there's a logical reason behind what we have seen and what we have experienced, right? It makes sense. Even if it's not what I originally thought it was, at the end of the day, when we get the reveal, it makes sense. Right. But us, when you get the reveal, it does not make sense. Right. That's my issue with us.
Us to me is more the social commentary of it. That's what it is. Like, it's the government.
I get all that thing, but that's what I'm saying.
It's not the hard logic
of being weird.
I don't think it's not weird for the sake of being weird. That is the logic. This is the government abuse people, and it's a social underclass, and that's the subject of it, the whole thing. And why they make it, why they make it, you don't know, because it's like a experiment that abandoned. So you're watching a bunch of abandoned people. So we don't know why this happened.
The internal logic of the tethered and stuff like that.
It's not revealed.
It does not make sense.
No, it's not revealed exactly why what's happening is happening. That is, to be fair.
Yeah.
But that don't really matter, because it's like, oh no, it's the government fucking people up. Like, that's what it is.
Right.
Like,
and for me, that's a shit excuse. To me, that's like, okay, the writers reach a point where they couldn't explain anymore, so they just blame the government and say...
Yeah, that's what it is. But that's the story. The story is about the social switch.
Which is why I don't like it.
So, moving on to and then we're finally into my top 5 favorite horror movies of the last 25 years. This is another filmmaker who I feel like loves to kind of sprinkle horror into his films, and some of them are genuinely quite horrifying. But I think that, like, when it comes to his own efforts as a director, this is the only film of his that I would straight up call a horror movie. Aside from Cabin in the Woods, it is the funniest film on this list for me. But it is also a movie that is so gross and so so gross. I cannot stress enough how gross this movie is, and how I know for most people that makes it incredibly off-putting. And I'm like when I meet people that don't, like, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. But when I meet people that are like, I really don't like that film, I'm like, I get it, but I still love it to bits, and there are bits of it that make me laugh my ass off. And that is from 2006, James Gunn's Slither.
Okay.
That should have been my honorable mention. I had a lot of fun with that movie, but yeah, it is gross AF. It's gross AF.
Speaking of James Gunn, it had something that also crossed my mind. What I call it, but it's more like an adventure thing. But I could see that plays as a horror. That is the Superman send up. Gosh, the little boy now. What's the name of that movie again?
Brightburn.
Brightburn. Brightburn could kind of come to a horror, maybe. Kind of.
Well, and like we've mentioned this earlier, but James Gunn, I mean, I feel like we forget this because, after Guardians, he mostly became known as a superhero guy. But this man started out in horror, even if you think about it with the Scooby-Doo films.
Trauma.
Starting out in Trauma, making just like shock for the sake of shock films, and then moving into things like writing 13 Ghosts, writing the Scooby-Doo movies, and like all this other type of stuff. And whereas someone like Jordan Peele is very interested in things that are uncanny and weird, James Gunn will always go for like, I'll admit, like, I love the man. I feel like he's come a long way, but he really does have a really clear sense of what shocks people. And I think that Slither is perfectly in that transition period between the older stuff that I don't like. Like, I don't like a lot of the films that come in James Gunn's filmography before Slither. But I think Slither is kind of that perfect point where, yes, it is grotesque. Like, it is straight up disgusting. But, like, in a way that makes me laugh my ass off for some reason, because I'm apparently demented. But, like, I don't know, like, some of the goriest scenes in that film. And, like, it's weird because it's an alien invasion movie. It's kind of a zombie film. It's a body horror movie. It is a body horror movie. It's also a domestic drama in this really great way that I really like. And I think it was his first film as a director after writing for a long time. This was his first film as a director. And I really think that as a directorial debut, it's like a really, really strong film. Like a lot of the things that I would grow to love James Gunn for are all present in this film. And again, it's just so dementedly hilarious. Like I love the bit where the one girl is escaping her family that have all been zombified by the alien slugs. And the sheriff like rushes out and is like, he can tell something's wrong with them, but they're these aliens doing human impressions. Like, what's all that on your face? It's poison ivy. And the two little girls, we're itchy. Slither is. Slither is like one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and it is one of my favorite zombie films, which I got in a fight with a friend because he was like, is Slither a zombie movie? And I'm like, they function once the people become possessed by the alien slugs, they really do function like zombies. Number 4, Sinners.
Right.
I love Sinners so much. Sinners, because like, first of all, as a remake of From Dusk Till Dawn, which I will maintain that Sinners is a remake.
Is it a remake? That's a great statement to me, dear. That's a great statement. Open to debate. I love that. Go on.
It is like, it's a fantastic remake. I think, like, I mean, obviously, like, you could, I mean, I'm not saying any kind of like, this film is derivative. I'm like, no. He takes the premise, and I think we can all agree, like, I don't know if anyone else here likes From Dusk Till Dawn as much as I do. I really like From Dusk Till Dawn. But like, I think it's not controversial to say that the best part of that movie is when they become trapped in the biker bar with the zombies with the vampires trying to kill them. Up until that point, it's like a pretty standard Tarantino crime story that's like a little edgy at times for its own good, especially with the character Tarantino plays. But Sinners takes the best idea from Dusk Till Dawn and it expands on it in this great way. I love the whole opening part of the movie where we establish all of these characters and we really set up the film, set up the conflicts and the tensions and the relationships. I love the film's use of blues mythology because here's the thing. If you know anything about blues music, blues is not just a genre. Blues is a folk mythology. There are blues. I watched it.
And I think it's a kind of Southern Gothic almost. No?
Yeah, it is very Southern. I watched this film with a white friend who was just like, wow, this movie's so good. And then I spent like an hour afterwards explaining the like blues mythology stuff going on in the movie about how there's all these little signals and all these little references like to the fact Buddy, is it like Buddy Guy? Is the guy who plays like
Lucia.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, who by the way dropped a new album by the way. So I'm hoping that people check it out because of his appearance in the film. Just saying. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right. Like explaining going to see this film with a white friend and explaining to him about who Buddy Guy is, explaining about, figure like the early blues. Like I think we forget this because it has been well over 100 years. Maybe even pushing 200. But some of those early blues musicians, there is a mythology around them. There's some of these people we don't know very much about them. Like I can't remember who it is, but the guy who famously sold his soul to the devil at the cross.
Right, that's the famous example, of that. Yeah.
Like the most famous example. And then you get all these guys like who supposedly had like and their real lives almost felt like mythology. People like Blind Willie Johnson, who, was blinded because his father threw lye in his face, like when he was a child, and grew up blind. Like who, if any of you at home are wondering who that is, you've heard one of his songs. If you've seen Scorsese's excellent movie Killers of the Flower Moon, there's a track from Blind Willie Johnson that's dumped over. That's needle dropped in that film over the whole sequence with the fire.
Yeah, I remember.
If you've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. So but seeing blues mythology brought to the screen like that is absolutely fantastic. Also, I have a soft spot for this movie because it felt a little bit like Ryan Coogler proving he still had it. Because the movie he made before this was Black Panther 2, which was a difficult production. There's a lot.
I love the film, but I know it was like. I know it would have been truly difficult for him to pull this off, right? For obvious reasons.
And it makes sense that there were some people who maybe left that film and were like, oh, wow, is Ryan Coogler still got it? And then he came out with Sinners. Also, I could gush about Sinners for hours, but I'm not even at my number one on this list. So yeah, Sinners, one of the, if any of you are listening who are then going to be listening to the end of year, best of year list, this is in stiff competition for my number one film of the year, but that's a whole other thing. But talking about reworking genres that I feel like we were all familiar with or felt that we had an understanding of. I do not have Dawn of the Dead on this list. I like the remake of Dawn of the Dead, but unfortunately, I think for me, I just have too much of a preference for the original. And I don't have 28 Days Later on this list either, because it's another film that I like more than I love. Same with 28 Weeks. Zombie films in general I'm a little picky. I'll admit that I'm a little picky about zombie movies because most of them I am comparing to Romero in my head. So the question you might be asking is, wait, so you don't have 28 Days Later on your list. You don't have Dawn of the Dead. You don't have Shaun of the Dead. What is your favorite zombie movie of the last 25 years? And the answer to that is from 2016, Train to Busan.
Okay, nice.
Yep.
Big bad movie.
Yep.
Probably one of the greatest zombie movies of all time. Not just of the last 25. Just Train to Busan is a goddamn masterpiece. I am someone who moves in film academic circles. There's a handful of movies that I keep in my head as if I had to teach screenwriting, I would use this film. And Train to Busan is one of the top of that list because it is such a tight, simple narrative. It has such a genius premise, and then it executes because I think there's nothing quite as frustrating as a film with a great premise that doesn't utilize it properly. or it's just anything that like takes its premise and like overextends it. But Train to Busan does such a good job of using its setting and its premise and creating a tight, claustrophobic, just genuinely adrenaline rushing, like exciting horror movie. Like it's a horror movie in the most primal sense of like you're literally like you're watching it and you're tense and your breath is coming in shorter things and you're like jumping up and down in your seat and you're like thrilled. It's what David F. Sandberg described as like roller coaster horror, like popcorn horror, like the kind of horror. It doesn't disturb you as much as you're like thrilled and excited and like just at the edge of your seat trying to like, oh God, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? I know. Yeah. So, and there are a lot of aspects of Train to Busan that are genuinely disturbing. Like, I think it understands. That's also, for me, my favorite version of like fast zombies. Cause like, I am generally not a fan of fast zombies, but I think Train to Busan's fast zombies are genuinely terrifying in a way that I really don't get from Dawn of the Dead or 28 Days. But like, no, it's just such a tight adrenaline rush of a movie, and I love it. I'm so upset that they're still trying to push forward with this American remake. That's going to be bad. Well, unless they like completely reimagine it, this is going to be bad. My number 2, we're in the top two. We're finally at the top 2. And my top 2 are both from the 2000s, actually. It's so weird because my number 2 is one that I don't actually hear people talk about for some reason, which is wild to me because, like, I think when it comes to most horror, especially outbreak horror, things like, you know, zombies or vampires or werewolves or whatever, or even, you know, things like John Carpenter's The Thing, there's always this tension of we have to stop this from spreading. We have to make sure that whatever alien or creature we're fighting doesn't spread and escape and take over the world. But what I find truly terrifying are movies that ask the question, well, what would happen if that did happen? What would the world look like if the creature that we were trying to stop took over the world? Like, what would happen if the evil won? What would the world look like? Like, this is why my favorite of Romero's original trilogy of zombie movies is actually Day of the Dead. Because Day of the Dead imagines a movie where we're not trying to survive. Because it's a movie where we're not trying to survive the apocalypse. The zombies won. For all we know, the people that we follow in the movie are the last humans. We don't know if there's any others. That whole opening sequence where they land in the random town in Florida and they're trying to find more survivors and they just bring out hordes and hordes of zombies. Like, that is scary to me. That is terrifying. That is so disturbing because you're just imagining a planet that has become completely overrun by whatever. It's a vision of an apocalyptic world. And from 2009, there is a film that to me created just as apocalyptic a vision of the world, and that is from the Spierig brothers, Daybreakers.
Wow, I haven't heard of that in years.
I had this on my list, but I didn't count it as a horror movie. But I did count it, but I had this on my list.
I love Daybreaker.
I love Daybreakers. It's great. Yeah, it's a good film, like world building about these vampires. Yeah.
Well, and I think that like that's what makes it a horror movie for me because the way that Daybreaker, like, because to me it is so disturbing to imagine a world where the vampires win.
Mm-hmm.
And to imagine a world where they don't have to hide and they take over the whole world. And that's disturbing. Like, that's so upsetting. Like, this world. Yeah. And because I think the film does such a great job of pointing out that if they won, like, vampires, it's a film that really does understand that vampires are essentially like a disease or a virus. Yes, a virus, which I feel like makes the movie even more, like, effective after living through a global pandemic. But like, a virus has the urge to, like, mutate and spread itself, right? But at the end of the day, if a virus were to succeed in its own goals, it would be self-destructive because eventually it would hit a point where there was no one left to infect and it would die. Right. What I find so disturbing about Daybreakers is it's like, that's the same thing that happens. The vampires win. They take over the world. Humans are driven underground, and they're actually not even driven underground. There's not a human resistance. I mean, there's technically, but like, there's not a meaningful human resistance. The vampires rule the world now, but they're dying because, like a virus, they're running out of stuff.
Yeah, they have no more blood. Yeah, they are no blood here.
They're running out, like they're running out of stuff to feed on, and that is, and like that alone, to say nothing of the world that this movie creates and how it creates this world and just the visuals.
Yeah.
There's this shot has stuck with me for so long, where the vampires are all waiting for a train, and then the train passes and they're all plunged into darkness, but their eyes keep glowing. Like that shot is just so disturbing. Like this idea of like the world is over. This is all we have left is these subhuman creatures that are draining the last of us, and eventually we'll have to turn on each other. And like I really liked the eye glowing thing when it was in Sinners as well, for like because it reminded me of Daybreakers. But yeah, Daybreakers, number 2, one of my all time favorite movies. Like seriously, top 50, top 10 possibly. And like, but it's also like just a genuinely disturbing horror movie for me, and one of the most creative films. It's one of the reasons I'm actually sad that the Spearig brothers haven't really done much else. Like their career kind of pittered out over time, I think, and they also started working on separate projects. I think they worked on Jigsaw at one point, but yeah, for the most part, they've just kind of fallen off a little bit. And I find that so disappointing, because when you look at their films like Daybreakers and Predestination, there was so much potential there for these to be really interesting, exciting filmmakers. But yeah. Now, with all that being said, it will surprise you all to know that my number 1 film is actually a film that has come up several times in this conversation. And it is a film that I adore for being well constructed, for being a film with a devastatingly simple premise. And it's a film that would already be disturbing and would already be upsetting on its own. But then with the little supernatural twist it adds, it just becomes so much more upsetting. But then when you add the personal character dynamics, like I think one of the things about the way we talked about horror before COVID, and I noticed this, I find this shift really interesting. People used to complain in horror movies. They're like, oh my God, this movie would be over so quick if the characters just collaborated and worked together, right? And if they just put aside their differences and focused on surviving, like this movie would be over in 5 minutes. Like they make that joke in Cabin in the Woods, where the characters are like, okay, let's all stick together and work to get out of this. And then the bad guys spray them with the stupid gas, and they're like, let's split up, like that kind of stuff. But I think what we learned the hard way from COVID, and I think that's why people like George A. Romero suddenly saw a reappreciation for their work, and I know Stephen King's The Stand saw a reappraisal as well, is people were like, oh, problem with a catastrophe or a disaster or any situation like that is that when things get tough, it's what I was saying about The Stand, there's a pressure that kind of gets put on people by the situation they're in, and it brings out a side of them that they don't like people who kind of don't like each other kind of start to hate each other. People who have previous tension, like the tension boils to the surface. Like, it's not that these are films where these writers are making these, I mean, there are cases where the writers are contriving ways to make these characters hate each other, but for the most part, we've seen this over and over again, that in survival situations, and I think some of the best horror is survival horror, it's the pre-existing tension and drama that characters have with each other that really sabotages them in a way that's really, like, in a way that's genuinely scary, because as confident as you can sit watching the movie and go, oh my God, I'm so, like, I would survive the situation, you actually don't know what you would do, which is why Neil Marshall's The Descent from 2005 is my favorite horror movie. Is my favorite horror movie of the last 25 years.
But of course,
the most brutal survival films, one of the most brutal horror movies I have ever seen. It is also, as I said earlier, with the supernatural element that gets introduced, right? This film is a masterclass of escalation. It's like, these characters all go on a splunk. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's not great, but, you know, they're having a good time. Oh, what's that? They're not quite sure of the way. Oh, no, what's that? They're straight up lost. Wait, one of the characters lied to them and they're actually exploring an unexplored cave and they're in a really dangerous situation. This is really like, oh, no, how could this get any worse? It's like every time the film hits a point where you, the audience, are going, well, how could this possibly get any worse? the writers introduce a little new element, a new exciting something.
I forget who said this. I think is which writer said this, but I think is oh gosh, it's someone of mine. I think is Ira Stephen Bear, one of these guys who just say the trick is to throw your characters up a tree and throw stones at them. And this is one of those.
Yes.
My god. Oh yeah. They nailed that.
Which is why,
absolutely nailed that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because and again, which is why the film's conclusion feels so inevitable. Like you get to the end of the movie and you're like, this is the only way it could have ended. Like there's no way. And I feel like again, comparing the film to The Mist, this is definitely another ending that I feel like you either completely get what the film is doing, or you're like, oh man, that sucks. But or you're like, oh, that sucks, but you're cackling like a hyena the whole time. Yeah, no, The Descent, one of the best screenplays for any horror movie from the last 2.5 decades, and my pick for my personal favorite horror movie of the new century we find ourselves in.
Yeah, if I could just say one thing before we wrap up, I still love to this day that we have no idea where these creatures came from. They just exist in this area, in this subterranean area, and that's it. Full stop. The end.
We don't there's no explanation. The film kind of I was thinking about this in comparison to oh goodness. That really awful movie that came out last year from M. Night Shyamalan's daughter.
What was that?
Watcher.
Yeah. The first trailer of which was greater, but then I heard so much bad things about it.
That is a movie that explains too much. The Watchers spends too much time explaining what is going on, to the point where you end up by the end being like, this was so much more disturbing and so much scarier when I had less information. So that's one of the reasons why I really like The Descent, because The Descent doesn't explain a damn thing. You just have to. I'm if you're the kind of person who's I don't believe this would happen, I'm like, okay, you're boring. If the only way you can buy into a film like this is if you can come up with some way. I always get annoyed at the people who are oh, I don't like horror movies with aliens or vampires because I'm more scared of serial killers, and I'm like, you're missing the point in such a profound way, but okay. But yeah, I think if you're going to do the supernatural, explain as little as possible. That's why my favorite horror movie of all time is Candyman, the original Candyman from the 90s, because it explains just enough to be scary, and you never get some detailed explanation of how Candyman himself works, but you just know that he is a supernatural being who is pissed off that this white woman is invading his sacred territory and is investigating him and trying to debunk him, and is you did not believe the stories, so I was obliged to visit you. That's why that movie is so brilliant. But yeah, because I think the supernatural, by its definition, cannot be explained. It's even in the name. Right. The supernatural defies the explanations of our world. So if you're the kind of filmmaker who feels the need to define the supernatural in exhausting detail, you're missing what makes it scary. And if you're the kind of viewer who's this would never happen in real life, so I'm not into it, I'm well, the whole point of the supernatural is that it is strange, it's uncanny, it doesn't obey the natural laws of the world we understand, which is what makes supernatural horror as effective as it is. But yes, that is my list. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.